I want to thank everyone for coming today. This is an issue that is very important to all of us here, and I certainly want to thank my colleagues who joined us at the press conference from the IBC, and I'd like to just turn it over to Senator Hannan just to give a brief opening remark. Senator Hannan is the chair of the Health Committee in the New York State Senate.
Well, I just thank you for having this roundtable and calling attention to something that falls in between the regulated and non-regulated arena of what people can take. And so often, as your lead witness and your honored guest can testify to, people get so wrapped up in what they believe to be an easy path to wellness and health and fitness and being able to be competitive in sports that there are shortcuts that are just not worth taking. So I just thank you and look forward to hearing from you today.
Senator Carlucci.
Thank you, Senator Klein, and I just want to reiterate what we talked about in the press conference and thank the Sparling family for your courage and your commitment to talking about your experience, to sharing the tragedy that you've had to go through so that it doesn't happen again. And I want to thank Jose Canseco for lending your celebrity, your name to this cause to make sure that it gets the attention it deserves. And with the action, with the experts here today, with my colleagues in the Senate, I believe New York will be able to take action so we can prevent this from happening in the future. Thank you, Senator Klein.
Senator Smith.
Yeah, again, thank you, Senator Klein. Again, to the Sparling family, Jose Canseco, to the doctors that are here as well. This issue is serious. And if anyone did not realize how serious it is, I hope today they recognize how serious it is. And unfortunately, we had to lose a life. And I'm talking about the Sparling family to your son. But again, as we talked about earlier, the world is going to know now. And this will be something that we're all going to take a very aggressive position on. And we thank you for being here. And Senator Klein, again, always, your leadership on issues that are critical to the people of the state and now the country is to be appreciated.
Thank you. The chair of the Higher Education Committee in the New York State Senate, Senator Lavelle.
Senator Klein, thank you. Thank you for holding this roundtable. Today, in a world where people are pushed to perform to the highest limits that they possibly can, and with dietary supplements being used more and more, it is important that we have greater oversight. And as was said, it's a shame that the loss of life many times puts a spotlight on an issue and moves the legislature to try and remedy that particular wrong.
I'd like to introduce Assemblywoman Schimmel, who has introduced the ban of DMAA in the Assembly. I thank you for joining us today as well.
Thank you, Senator, and I'm very pleased to be the Assembly sponsor on this bill because it is so important. I represent a suburban district, and I know about the pressures that Senator Lavelle talks about, these performance-enhancing drugs and the pressure on particularly our young people to perform both in school as well as on the athletic fields. And I'm interested in hearing expert testimony, if you will, and personal sad testimony. Unfortunately, it's often sadness that leads legislation to work, and I thank you for your courage in stepping out, and Senator, for bringing attention to this topic. Thank you.
The first area of discussion is going to be banning DMAA in New York. We'll talk briefly about the science and regulatory issues, as well as a focus on the legal issues that I know Ann Andrews is going to talk about, as well as the Sparling family. So first up, I'd like to have Dr. Pieter Cohen talk about, I guess, the scientific evidence and I guess what the FDA is actually looking at now when it comes to DMAA.
In terms of banning DMAA, the case is extremely strong. And the reason is that we don't even need any tragedies. We didn't need any tragedies. Ingredients and supplements need to have a natural, need to be extracted from a natural source, period. There's not one scientific bit of evidence that DMAA has ever been extracted from a plant. So, since it's never been extracted from a plant, that means that it's pharmaceutically produced. A pharmaceutically produced substance is a new drug, not a dietary supplement. So even before we turn to any tragedies, and that's why they're completely preventable, we can eliminate DMA simply on those facts, that it should never be in supplements to begin with. And because the FDA is not doing their job, Senator Klein, the state of New York, will be taking the lead.
There was a report put out, I think, by one of the manufacturers that DMAA was natural, that it came from extracts from geranium. Is there any truth to that?
So there are 3 all very controversial studies that suggest that DMA, trace amounts of DMA, are found in a geranium in one section of China. If you can find a molecule in a plant, that's completely different than extracting it from the plant, placing it into a pill, and then selling it. And in terms of supplements in the United States, the law is it needs to either be the plant or extracted from the plant. You cannot find a chemical that exists somewhere in New Zealand on some one orchid dangling off one tree, magnify it 1,000-fold, put it in a pill, and assume it's safe and effective. That's absurd. So although there are these controversial studies suggesting that there might be trace amounts in one area of China, that wouldn't make it legal. That's number one. But number 2 is that those are all small controversial studies. And in fact, we have over a half-dozen academic, meticulously done studies that have not been able to confirm those controversial findings. So in fact, I think the body of scientific evidence is clear. DMA doesn't exist in any plant.
Why is sometimes, I guess, DMAA on labeling, there's like 30 different names attached to it?
Well, since we're dealing with a pharmaceutical drug, you can name it anything you want to, right? So you start out with the chemical formulation. There's just a few varieties of that technical name. But then, just like drug companies can name Lipitor, make whatever name they want to sell their products, that's what we're seeing here. You have a pharmaceutical, and then the trade decides its fancy name to market it.
I know we talked about it at the press conference, but can you just, I guess, briefly compare ephedra and DMAA?
The only controversy on this is whether or not DMAA is more of a stronger stimulant than ephedra, or if it's the same. There's no controversy within the expert opinion about these being equivalent in terms of their effect on the body. And like has already been pointed out, and Ann Andrews really led this charge. It took 10 years, long battles, up to the Supreme Court to ban ephedra. Why we need to go through this again in a substance that should never be in supplements in the first place is unconscionable.
I guess I want to have Ann talk about some of the legal issues that are attached to DMAA.
Yes, Senator, and I would like to use...
And I guess if you could also speak to the labeling issue as well.
And I was going to borrow the label from this particular product. We're going to talk about dietary supplements and the standards and practices and law related to them. Let's start with the product itself. Jack3, for those of you young people in the room, Jack is an attractive name for attracting young people to get a feeling of, let's say, a state of consciousness that has them jacked up, has them excited. It's associated with partying, it's associated with the feeling of euphoria with exercise, and being jacked is, this is the culture. So they've taken advantage of this. I also want to point out that this company calls itself USP Labs, and I'm sure Dr. Eichner can explain to us the confusion on that level, that they would name themselves after one of the preeminent standards and quality assurances, GMP standards, the U.S. Pharmacopoeia.
So they did a nice little job with that. But the thing that really, really gets to me over the years I've been doing this, and what actually the people who made ephedrine, and there were many, many companies that were driven off the market and many, many injured consumers by those products that have thought and discussed here today. New York did ban that product and took leadership in that. Those labels were far superior to this. Those labels told a consumer how much ephedrine, how many milligrams were in. The directions were better, the labeling was better, it actually gave an amount. There was some testing, maybe there were some fuzzy issues with the testing, but for the most part, that industry tried pretty hard, not in agreement with the consequences of their acts and the product, but to keep a standard of quality. They tried. These people have done nothing but tell you that this product consists of a proprietary blend. That's the new fashion. It's all a secret. A proprietary blend of 4,145 milligrams of what? Of something. And it lists in the order of who knows. No, there's no regulation on this. They can put whatever on this label they feel like. So they list the DMAA, they list other beta-alanines. There's a trademark, a trade name for farnesene, which is other experts in this room can talk about that. So they have allowed themselves, and the government has allowed them to never tell you how much DMAA is. And it could be one amount today in this bottle, and if they decided to change the amount tomorrow, it could be another amount. More powerful, more preserving. The other thing we really detest about this product is the fact that you're using a scoop. What drug delivery system that we think has any science behind it to deliver a safe and effective prescribed amount or the recommended amount is done with a scoop? That is the sloppiest delivery system. It's, again, part of the culture, and people in the sports medicine area can talk why diet beverages are popular. It's another marketing aspect of this. There is a pill form of this, but the scoop really attracted your son and attracted many of our other clients, and this is by far the very, very most popular product. I just also want to tell you that it also has this very scary and attractive, because of the culture, at the same time, black box warning. May allow for workout domination in conjunction with proper training and diet due to its incredible potency. It's very important to follow the directions for use and warnings. And then you go to the use and warnings and they tell you nothing. And there's no way. One of the things that Dr. Cohen and other doctors in the room and I agree about, know the science in this case, is that what is impossible about these products that contain dangerous stimulants is that sensitive populations of people, like the Sparling boy, are unable to know whether it's them or the person in the regiment in the infantry next to them, the soldier next to them, or the soldier next to them that is going to have a heart attack or stroke from this product. Because there is no long-term, case-controlled, police double-blinded study, what we call the gold standard in medicine, to prove what the incident rate is of harm. So when you're asking about studies, you need to pull back and think about what a real safety study is, and I think that ought to be talked about more today by the experts in the room. That if we were to design a study, and companies, responsible companies, were to show you this product is safe, they would have done such a safety study. The law does not require them to do it. So what evidence do we have? And I'll summarize with that. What evidence we have is that through a FOIA request done by my associate, Sean Higgins, and we all know the Freedom of Information Act can be a very useful tool for consumers and families to find out what happened to other people, not just their son. We learned that there are well over 60 serious adverse events. They range from death, cardiac injury, heart attack, cardiac they need to bring this bill forward.
Can I ask you a question, Ann? Why is it that there was a warning letter to 10 companies from the FDA, and this is still on shelves in GNC and the Vitamin Shoppe?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. This is a regulatory patchwork of the consequences of a federal act that, though well-intended, these manufacturers, not all these companies, but let's say the bad boys and girls that have run through the loopholes of DMAA to market a product like this and to sell it worldwide, have been allowed to do this because they take the position, and this, we were discussing this before our meeting today and our conference today, that the DMAA Act does not specifically ban them from making this product synthetically. That you cannot find anywhere in that act that it says you cannot, if it's found in a plant, and if you can prove it's found in a plant, they should be extracting it from the plant. But there is no bold-faced, bright line law that says that they can't make it. So the FDA is struggling with this gray area. What they can do, what they must do, though, is make it according to standards and practices that they were asked to conform with and didn't. They were asked to show, as Dr. Cohen mentioned, the fact that it was available in the plant, that they had extracted it from a plant, and there was evidence that it had been on the market before 1990, all underpinnings of DMAA. And they basically wrote a letter. It's not in our packets today, but it's available on the FDA website. Said, not only do we not have to prove that, but if we decide to put a synthetic molecule in this bottle, we say we're still safe and protected under DMAA. And they said to the FDA, we're thumbing your nose at them, we're thumbing our nose at you, and we're saying, come sue us. So this is the danger of a gray area in the law that a very, very smart set of individuals have figured out how to run through it. And what we want the state of New York to shore up, and that you have that right under DMAA. You have the right. Every state in this union has the right to make these rules, to do what it will, and that's the best part about DMAA.
First, I just want to, we've been joined by Senator Diane Savino, representing Brooklyn and Staten Island. Thank you, Senator, for coming. Just, I guess, as a follow-up, Ann, why is it, though, that if the letter was received by the companies from the FDA, the product is banned by the military, by the Olympics, by Major League Baseball, why is it that, GNC and the Vitamin Shoppe are still selling this product?
Well, I'm really glad you brought up that issue. I mean, one of the things
As a matter of fact, I don't know if you know, Ann, but Ann, this is something that GNC themselves has been marketing over the last couple of months. It's on their website. It was actually removed from their website recently, which contains DMAA.
Senator, we track GNC, Vitamin Shoppe, and the various big box stores, how they carry these products and how they come up and down from their websites all the time. But what I want to tell you is that a biggest concern is that to consumers is GNC can sell it because it's legal to be sold. Because the gray area that these manufacturers have taken advantage of allow GNC to. What's irresponsible and what is deplorable. And the Sparling's son, a soldier, bought this product at GNC. I don't know if you were all aware of that, on a U.S. military base. We were shocked in the early 90s when we learned of the expansion and military bases of stores on military bases, over 200 of them across the world, where soldiers looking to fit and looking to be the best that they could be could go and buy these products. And we knew as lawyers watching these terrible, terrible consumer issues that once they were in the bases, the attractiveness to soldiers around the world, that this would happen. And we have represented many military families. We are very concerned about GNC's sale of this product, and we know that in the states where they are to be held accountable, that they are as accountable as the manufacturer. Because one thing I'm here to tell you is that most of the companies that make these products and make hundreds of millions of dollars off of them eventually end up where, Senators? They end up in bankruptcy court. They're undercapitalized, they are underinsured, they file for protection under the United States Code for bankruptcy, and we and our law firm and this case will chase that company to bankruptcy and fight it as long as it takes. sell a safe product that's safe for the consumers, and the knowledge that they have about ephedrine, as Dr. Cohen will enlighten us more, and Dr. Eichner, is that this product is well known to do what it's done.
Senator Hannan?
Ms. Andrews, you had mentioned that the federal law allows certain latitudes in the states to take action. Exactly what is the type of authority that they're granted?
Because dietary supplements are regulated as food, and this is an area of food and health and safety is delegated to the states, it's not preempted by federal law. So the wisdom of DSHEA and the intention of DSHEA was, well, we're going to do this kind of slightly wacky thing. We're going to let dietary supplements become available, we're going to let them be made, we're going to sanction them under federal law as long as they do certain things. As long as they're extracted from botanicals, as long as you can prove to us that it was in a food before 1990, so it's not some new wild crazy thing, that it's an established food. They went back to 1990. Then they said, and we want you to demonstrate that it's manufactured properly, and that you're putting in this jar, in this pill, what you say is in the label, and that you show the government. And there's a code of federal CFR on this. I think it's 1115.75, where they must file a report that says what's going in this product is in, and we show certificates of analysis to the FDA to say, hey, we're playing by the rules. This company wouldn't do that. They were asked to do it, and I forget the date now. My file's upstairs, but about 4 months before the second letter went out, another letter had gone out asking them just to comply with the good old CFR that says, tell us what's in this, and you've tested it, and you know it's pure, and it doesn't have rat parts in it. Insects, the things that you think of in food, the safety and quality that we have with manufacturing processes and qualities that we have for things that are just in our body. So it's regulated as a food, and it allowed the states to say, we're going to allow this in our state, and the tension was that states want to have a lot of oversight over the safety of consumers or herbal botanicals. It was also done for senior citizens. There were a lot of things that pharmaceuticals were becoming extremely expensive, products like glucosamine and things that have probably limited efficacy, but there's not a lot of evidence of negative safety data, have been allowed. And they have been somewhat of an experiment, but that was what DSHEA was intended to do. Not to allow potent street drugs to be extracted and to be made in a manufacturer, really no different than a meth lab, and it be sold to young people and soldiers of our fighting for our country.
Senator Laval? And I know that you
Just a very short comment to your point, Ann. Anyone who gets Men's Health, Men's Fitness, other magazines like that, GNC advertises throughout those magazines, and with pictures that you think, wow, I could get pecs like that or an abs like that by just taking this stuff, and people have no idea what they're taking. They have no idea whether it's regulated at all or what the consequences of taking that. So you're right on. I mean, you talked about Walmart and so forth, but I think the magazines really bring to the public these drugs in droves.
Well, and I urge you, Bill, whatever happens, the state going forward, to not bow to the incredible pressure of lobbying organizations of the retailers that are going to let this company walk up into Chapter 7, leaving nothing with perhaps your state and other states left with the bills. I mean, there's no doubt that young people without medical insurance, if they're hurt, if they have strokes, if they have heart attacks, if they have brain injury from cardiac arrest, they're going to be supported by federal and state medical systems. And those bills will come back to visit your taxpayers and your budgets. So that's the circular unfairness of this. That if the pressure comes into this legislature to limit retailers' liability in this, please resist it at all costs. We have the dockets of 10 years of bankruptcies to show you that the retailers ended up being responsible in the court system, in the civil justice system, which the state of New York has done a fine job of protecting the laws for consumers here, that do not bow to those pressures, that will look like tort reform to let the There's no innocence here. They're just as guilty for the profits that they get from this as the people who make it. They have the experience with it. There's not a single store today, I almost can guarantee you, a single big retailer that didn't sell at Bedman that isn't selling this stuff. They knew about it then and they know about it now.
Dr. Eichner, want to speak on this topic?
Yeah, thank you. Amy Eichner from U.S. Anti-Doping, and I just want to thank Annie Andrews and echo what she said. This bill is so important because the FDA, as you mentioned, has issued 10 warning letters, so 10 companies. But there are hundreds of products out there made by many dozens of companies. This bill will shine the light on all of those manufacturers and retailers of DMAA, and that is absolutely critical. The other thing is I'd like to point out, so Ann Andrews mentioned she has 60 odd adverse events from the FDA, but Dr. Cohen and also the Government Accountability Office and other authors have well established that adverse events are grossly underreported. According to the GAO report in 2009, for every adverse event reported, 100 go unreported. So we don't even know the true nature of damage that DMAA has caused on the American public.
Can I make a comment on that?
Sure.
The reason why you don't know is because a lot of these kids are using these products as party drugs. And they don't want to tell you the reason why they bought it, how they use it, or what they mixed it with. That's been a problem for the last 40 years.
Well, another issue
GHB was a problem when they were selling on the market. The other federal was the same deal, and now this.
But the other issue is that a lot of people don't expect to have side effects from something that is a food, so or a dietary supplement. So they don't think to report it. A lot of physicians, and Dr. Cohen could certainly speak to this, don't know to ask their patients about adverse events around dietary supplements. So again, we don't know the true damage that this has done nationwide.
Ed, did you want to speak on this?
One of the other concerns too with that is when we have deaths associated with DMAA, DMAA is not a normal substance looked for in a lot of autopsy screens. So it isn't until recently when we're actually doing more research and you're starting to see more people who are having a death associated with athletic fitness type of an issue. So we just saw this as well overseas in the London Marathon where one of the runners died. They found out that she actually had a DMAA found present in the water bottle she was using because she's using one of these workout supplements. So it's something that they're not being screened for in a lot of autopsies. So this is just something new that we're also trying to roll out to the medical community to also be looking for.
I want to change topics. The next topic is teenage consumption in young athletes. And Mr. Canseco, I guess, could certainly speak to that. What drives, young athletes to, take these supplements, to take these extra stuff? I mean, aren't they trained, I guess, to eat right, train hard? And
They are. A lot of them want to do the right things. A lot of them are trained properly. A lot of them supplement themselves properly, but there's so much competition in every field. Only a certain small percentage make it to the major leagues or to the NFL, to professional sports, and only a minute amount make it where they stay, and only a small, tiny percentage make it to where they're superstars, MVPs, and so forth. So I think these young athletes, I know they come up to me all the time as I'm still playing independent baseball. So I play with kids half my age, you can imagine, anywhere from 19 to 28 years old. I also train kids in power hitting. And I see their eyes, they pull me aside, and they still want that edge. They want that quick fix, they want that magic pill. And I keep on telling them, number one, of course, got to stay with steroids, period. But they still ask me, so what else can I use? What is legal that can mimic steroids? What is legal that can help me get that edge? And I said, listen, the best thing to do is hard work and a very strict diet. And the main thing I tell them is stay away from party drugs, stay away from liquor, because that diminishes what you're actually trying to accomplish. That can give you the edge, just staying away from these so-called alcohols and the cocaine, the marijuana. Stay away from those drugs that can actually hurt you. That's your edge that you can get there. But I know they still want to be in the elite athletes. They still want that $100 million contract. And I think they weigh the pros and cons of it. They weigh the benefits of it against the actual losses. And a lot of them, no matter what you tell them, if there's that magic bottle that says, I can get you to the top of your game for you to become the best athlete possible, but there's a 1 out of 1,000 chance that it may kill you. It's strange because these kids are willing to take the risk. I think it's just a lack of education. They don't take it serious enough that something like this tragedy happens. And I think a lot of it is, when I look at products, I mean, when I was young, I tested a lot of products. And when I look at them, false advertisement, fraudulent advertisement, they're not right in line. They associate be like Mike, because Mike drinks Gatorade, so now you can jump and dunk a ball. That's just ridiculous. And of course, the topic of there is jacked. Jacked when I was young meant you're at the top of your game, no matter what game it was. If you're going out with the women, you're jacked, you're it. If you're in sports, you're jacked, you're it. If you take off your shirt on the beach, you're jacked, you're it. So I guarantee you that name was put there for a reason. It had a purpose behind it. I kind of see the sneaky way that was brought into the dietary supplement world. It's known more as a party drug. Ephedra was known more as a party drug. Other ones in the past were brought into as supplements, but they were taken right away into the culture of a party drug. And that's where their main sales were actually made. So I think also advertisers have to have some type of responsibility. You see false advertisement every day. The guy who puts on the Axe cologne and 5 girls jump on him. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's gotten to a point where you don't know what to believe, to be honest with you. It's just crazy.
How widely, I guess, you have young athletes now, steroids are banned, as you talked about earlier. You believe that Major League Baseball has really cleaned up their act. But how widely used are products like Jacked and, this product here that contains DMAA?
A lot of times, kids are trying anything and everything possible, and half of it doesn't even work, to be honest with you. A good diet and a good workout routine works better. A lot of it is, if you notice that product Jacked or DMAA, are there any athlete's face attached to it? Do we know that? Is there any athlete promoting it? You got to be careful about the products that athletes will not directly promote. Those are ones that have red flags.
So
you got to be very careful of that.
They have doctors on their website, they have
Yes.
medical researchers, but we haven't seen them specifically.
I understand that, but here's the thing. When I was playing baseball, and I knew what Ephedra was back then, if Ephedra came to me and said, listen, we want you to promote this product. We'll put your face on it, you get a percentage of the company, whatever. And I looked at it, I said, wait a minute, this is substantial. I'm not going to promote it because I know what it could do. If you look at most products that are extremely dangerous, athletes won't put their face behind it. You won't see any athlete like a LeBron James or a Michael Jordan endorsing it. That should be a red flag if these products actually come out and say, wow, they can do all these magic things. How come you don't have an elite athlete behind it or any face behind it? You've got these fake doctors with fake degrees. Yeah, you have all that, but you don't have a real face behind it.
That's an excellent point. Pat, did you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I think there's really 3 different subsets to look at population-wise when you're talking about a supplement like this. I think your first population is pre-college, okay? When you think about the cost of a college education right now, let's say on average a scholarship is $50,000 a year, and a kid has no way to go to college. There are some athletes at the collegiate level that could not financially get a college education if they weren't taking some type of supplement or they weren't an athlete. And so I think that's your first subgroup because they're looking for that edge to get over the top so that they can get a scholarship. Then your second group of guys are the guys in college that maybe aren't on scholarship and are trying to get a scholarship. There was a study done back in the late 90s, early 2000 that was talked about the prevalence of steroid use. And the highest prevalence of steroid use in the United States was actually in D3 football players because they all thought that if they took steroids for 1 year, somebody was going to notice them, and then they'd end up at a big-time university playing big-time college football. And so that's your second subset. And then your third subset are your athletes that are outside of college, whether it be the weekend warrior or the lay person, because professional athletes, like you pointed out, aren't going anywhere near this stuff. Like, you've never heard of a professional athlete coming out who tests positive and and says, well, I took this supplement, and then takes them to federal court suing them because they tested positive. They take their ban, they walk away, and their publicist says, be quiet about it, so it'll go away. So I think that point that you bring up is a perfect point. There's nobody getting behind any of these products. And I think last but not least, the way, from my view, the supplement industry is kind of like this 10-year revolving door, where like a supplement comes out, it gets really hot, it sells a whole bunch, and then it goes away. Because the posse, i.e. legislators and lawmakers, finally catch up with what the supplement is doing, and they say, we're gonna put you out of business because it's killing people, it's hurting people. And so, you know, Ephedra was great, Whip Fuel, what was it, Hydroxycut, Yellow Jacket, there were a number of them that were out in the late 90s, early 2000s, and all of a sudden they go away. Well, what happens? The next drug comes in and kind of fills its place. You know, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Valco, but when I worked out on the West Coast, Valco was this huge deal, all right? The only reason any of that ever came out was because somebody got pissed off and sent the vial. It's the only reason it ever came out. Otherwise, nobody ever would have known about it. Nobody ever would have realized that, you know, so-and-so was hitting home runs here, or so-and-so was, you know, had this many yards rushing. Nobody ever would have known about the cream and clear if somebody hadn't been disgruntled. And I hate to get off topic, but I think when we look at supplements in general and the entire industry, what the state of New York is trying to do is the state of New York is trying to say, listen, it's not okay for you to put something out there that's going to hurt people, and we are going to come after you, and we are going to get it off the market if we can prove that it hurts people. And that's the line in the sand. Because if I'm an Olympian, I can't take this stuff. I know that. I'll test positive. Boom, done. At the NCAA level, your first positive test with the NCAA regulator, boom, you're banned for a year. Done. So my
I
guys
guess
know.
that was the follow-up, Pat. I mean, are young people aware of that? That, you know, they're gonna be tested, you know, at the college level, Major League Baseball, the NBA?
They're going to be tested, but I think the question becomes is I'm considered support staff. So when you talk about a Division I team, okay, bigger Division I universities, okay, take the time to hire professionals to fill in a lot of these things. Okay, we have a registered dietitian on staff that works with our kids so that we have the support, we have the knowledge to work with all these people. But at a smaller school that maybe doesn't necessarily have somebody that's an RD on staff that has the opportunity to teach your kids, they're not getting the information that they need.
Senator, can I follow up on that? Pat is correct. All the sports agencies know what's in these products, so they're going to protect, you know, the usage of them because of the positive test. What happens is in the testing world, and why there's so many innocent victims, even those that are hurt, also those that aren't hurt, these drugs on a broad screen assay, if you go for an employment test, if you want to be a police officer, if you want to work in the fire department, and these days drug testing is in every major reputable company, let's face it. So we're often contacted by people of all manner of education and background that think that they're taking a product that's safe because they bought it at GNC, and they will pull a positive broad screen assay. It goes on their record. They have to go through a lot of legal help to solve the problem, to get it out of their personnel record that they were taking a legal product that is so closely connected molecularly, so similar to amphetamine, that when they're looking for illicit drugs in a broad screen assay at a hospital, at an employment laboratory interview, and it really ruins people's lives. People lose careers over this. So it's point well taken. The sports industry knows a lot about it, but the average person on the street that's passing a job interview to maybe get to a very important place in life will lose a lot. And I think my clients wanted to say something, wanted to comment, found something important to them. We have prepared something, but I wanted to take you through my day real quick. On June 1st, I was getting ready for work, and something told me something was wrong, and I didn't have my phone with me, and I had missed a call from Fort Bliss. When I listened to that message, it was my son's captain saying that he needed to speak with me right away, that my son had collapsed. I said, okay, I called, and he said, ma'am, you need to talk to the commander of the hospital. The commander got on the phone, and he said, ma'am, your son has collapsed, and he has suffered a heart attack. And a lot of things were going through my mind, you know. One, a 22-year-old does not die of a heart attack, so that's good. But how disappointed my boy was going to be, because now he was going to have a medical discharge because he had a heart attack, and how could this have happened? And he told me that they had found the Jack3d in his room. thing that I told him, I said, please tell Michael that his mom is on her way. And he said, ma'am, you're not understanding what I'm saying. Your son right now is in cardiac arrest, and we're performing CPR on him. And I said, sir, are you telling me my boy's gonna die? He says, ma'am, you better pray. We're doing everything we can to save his life. And I couldn't understand. He's 22 years old in the best shape of his life. How could this happen to him? How could this have been allowed to happen to him? Michael wanted to be the best he could be. He wanted to be the best soldier, the best son. He loved this country. He loved our military. Even during this basic training, he had told us that he found his niche, that this is what he wanted to do for the rest of his life, that he already had planned on re-upping. And I said, now wait a minute, son, just let's get a tour in, and then you come home and we'll discuss it. And he said, no, Mom, this is it for me. You know, this is what I'm meant to do. But he died as a direct result of ingesting Jack3d. That he went to a GNC on his base and was told that it was 100% natural. And I had asked him, he says, Mama, it's 100% natural, it is safe. He felt that this product would help him achieve his goals. And we understood the risk of him joining the military, but we could not imagine that he would die for taking a supplement. As I told you before, we have been giving a life sentence because of his death. On June 1st, 2011, my son lost his voice, and I vowed to him that day that I would be his voice, that Mama had his back. Let us hope that awareness brought by Michael's tragic death will compel this legislative body in this great state of New York to be bold and take a stand. We also want to raise awareness through our charitable organization, the Michael Lee Sparling Foundation, by educating young adults and young athletes and their parents of the dangers of dietary supplements. Containing stimulants. They need to understand what the chemicals can do in their body. As you consider today the legislation before you, I implore you to imagine your son or daughter going into a GNC and buying a supplement that they were told is safe and natural, and then tragically finding out it wasn't. You have the power today to prevent this from happening to other children and other adults. I want to thank you for what you're doing, Senator.
Thank you
I
for coming in
appreciate
today,
it.
Leanne.
And I just pray that other states will follow.
The next topic is the disclosure to consumers. I know we covered a little bit about that, but I guess the question I have, is when my office conducted a hidden camera investigation where we sent staff people into GNC, into the Vitamin Shoppe, and asked for this product. In every case, we asked that we wanted to buy it for a 14-year-old. Not even an 18-year-old, not even a 19-year-old, a 14-year-old. And the salespeople very willingly sold the product. some would say you gotta be careful, don't take too much of it. But most of the salespeople in the store, you know, were young kids themselves, you know, knew nothing of the product and just said, yeah, you know, you're gonna get a great workout, it's gonna give you tremendous energy, power, you'll have the best workout of your life, you're gonna get pumped. Why is it that at least the labeling isn't required, as you said, which they even did with ephedra years ago?
Well, this isn't ephedrine, and you probably remember, Senator, that in the early days of ephedrine, there was really virtually no label. I mean, it just said, you know, they kind of copied the label that was on over-the-counter medications, you know, don't take if you have any health problems, and, you know, check with your doctor if you have, you know, a heart attack history or high blood pressure. It was a very copied, the history of labeling on OTC products really started and ended with things like cold and cough suppressants. And the genesis of the label of ephedrine and what you saw over the years, you saw stronger and stronger labels. Well, what happened, like states like yours in Ohio and Texas, and I think even New York was one of the states that attacked the labeling issue first. So there were all these states that were saying you've got to have better labeling. So it forced the manufacturers over time. The Department of Health was very active in requiring better labeling, where the ingredients were clearly marked, the dosage was clearly marked. They had to put a very long warning on it about how to use it and when you shouldn't use it. If you have a strong family history of, you know, heart attack, hypertension, if you're using it in conjunction with other medications. Monooxidase inhibitors are, you know, danger for complications of all kinds of drugs. So it had a basic sort of drug warning about complications and contraindications. And consult your doctor if you have any of these before you start taking it. Well, it wasn't nearly the kind of warning that it should have been, because if it had had a double-blind, large population, placebo-controlled study like a drug does, we would have known how, but in the hands of a doctor, of a prescriber, able to take that warning and research that analysis by their own methods. Some of the warning became very, very comprehensive, but very difficult for consumers to really read and understand, because it would take a doctor to really be able to rule out all those consequences, and they were serious. By the time ephedrine crescendoed, we had well over 25,000 actual reported adverse events at the FDA and in the files of these companies that had not voluntarily turned them over. And there were some serious consequences in law for not having done that and having said different things to the FDA about what kinds of adverse events. All the while, hundreds of millions of dollars of profits being made by those companies. It was the most popular weight loss and bodybuilding supplement, bar none. And the label is only the beginning of the problem, because without the study to back up and without a consumer and a doctor to explain, without safety to really show who is and who isn't going to be hurt, so what that label should say, the label means nothing. But the label did get stronger, and this label is, you know, worthless.
Dr. Cohen, I guess going to the labeling, I mean, is there any type of condition, is there any type of, and I know Mr. Canseco mentioned that, any kind of physical condition or when excessive heat, dehydration, is there anything that actually exacerbates the ill effects of DMAA?
Absolutely. And taking a step back, before I answer that question about the sort of factors that might play in, is that because it's regulated like a food, there is no need to put, just like a food, like if you buy apples, it's presumed to be that safe. And of course, there's no need to put the side effects of an apple that you might choke on it on its label to be sold. And basically, although these are drugs, they're being treated like apples and oranges. So there's zero law, federal law, to say that even if you have a known side effect, so if this is well proven, large clinical trials, no need to list that on the label. Similarly, if it's going to interact with other medications someone might take, there's no law that that's listed on the label. But unlike apples and oranges, we don't taste this. We're taking it pills, powders, swallowing it. These pharmaceuticals, or the plant extracts. So we don't have our usual senses to try to determine something's rotten. And unfortunately, this combined with the law that allows the companies to promote them for practically any purpose creates the environment that we're in, which is that consumer feels safe, but in fact is being exposed to real risk.
Does anyone else want to comment on the sort of the labeling issue, the side effects?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo what Andrews and Dr. Cohen have said. And, you know, we are talking, dietary supplements are regulated as a category of food. You shouldn't need, the fact that you need a warning label on something that is supposed to be safe and healthy is a huge risk factor.
I think the other thing to echo is DMAA is not a food. It was first brought into the market as a drug in the 1940s by Eli Lilly. Supplement regulations are
I
written.
think for a decongestant.
Yeah, it was for nasal decongestant sprays. So it was a stimulant to help open up nasal airways if you're having a cold. When you bring a new drug to market, if it's approved or even if it's not approved, you cannot then go and then bring it down the supplement route to be sold as a dietary ingredient, which is where we feel that the federal regulations should be pushing. This shouldn't be a he said, she said, is it in geranium at such a low level that you can extract it, or is it not in geranium? The case was made back in the mid-1940s when Eli Lilly patented this drug. And if you look at all the systemic toxicology studies that was completed with it, it shows that this is a product that is somewhere as a stimulant in between amphetamines and ephedrine. So therefore, we have one substance that's a controlled substance, another one that was banned for use in a dietary supplement in 2004, still on the market. So I think that's where we need to take a look at and see where do we define this and how do we take action against it. A warning label isn't going to do much. You see how much information that they try to cram on a label right now. Most of that gets lost to the consumer. The consumer has a hard time deciphering what's real and what's marketing spin. You know, recently we found another banned substance in a product, and it wasn't a military issue. This was a testosterone boosting product that was brought to our attention. And New York City Police Department actually started testing their officers for steroids. And this officer tested positive, couldn't figure out, you know, how this got into his system. And we ended up tracing it back. He actually sent us in a sample of a product, and it was loaded with a banned steroid in the product. Again, how does that get in there? The product had a warning label on it. A warning if you're in this type of a condition, if you take this, you should stay away from it. It didn't stop the consumer still from purchasing it. So when we find these products that are actually spiking and adulterating their product with known drugs, the difference has to be taken. We have to take a step to get that product off the market before a consumer can take a product that could potentially have a significant adverse event.
Senator, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to make the point here. So this product sitting here in front of Senator Klein, OxyElite Pro, if you look at the label on it, it has a lot of so-called warnings, you know, but it's interesting the way they market it. It says first, OxyElite Pro is pharmacist formulated and then in bold type, must be used with extreme caution only by healthy adults capable of handling its true power. So right off the bat, they're appealing to people who have a developed sense of their own physical ability. And we all know when you walk into GNC or any of these supplements, place where you can get supplements, it's because you're looking for a miracle in a bottle, right? If you're a woman, you're looking for something that's going to help you lose a pound a day. If you're a guy, you're looking for something that's going to help you achieve, you know, tremendous physical power. But on the label also, it says for clinical studies, obviously they did their own clinical studies, go to the website. So I just went to their website, and here's the headline, DMAA research. Newly released groundbreaking research studies show USP Labs DMAA supplements are safe and effective. And then they give 5 so-called double-blind studies proving that this product is not only safe, it's effective, it's going to, you know, make you whatever you want to be. And then at the very bottom, if you manage to go through all 5 studies, these statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or
In
prevent
tiny print, right?
disease.
Real tiny.
Shiny little letters. And that's
Unusual.
consistent, I think, with most supplements, you know, with the ones that tell you that you can, you know, transform your body overnight, and then in the bottom it says, as long as you diet and exercise. So part of the, I think, the challenge for us is how do we regulate an industry that is kind of predicated on people looking for a cure for whatever ails them when it doesn't really exist, and then protect people from the you have pharmacy, you have to counsel. Your pharmacist would have given it to you, and your doctor would have prescribed it in conjunction with your prescribed medication. I mean, these are the sort of the secondary consequences of these products for people who do have a medical condition. They're really scary. But I think we said earlier, and I think it's worth saying again, there is a sensitive, unknowable population of young, healthy people today that will take this product and never have had a health consequence. So throw away a warning. This warning has no use for them. That's why it takes a large, long-term clinical trial for drugs to tease out those numbers in a true epidemiological fashion so that we can rely on that data and doctors can rely on it. And companies can say, epidemiologically, this has been proven by a Harvard or a Yale or New England Journal of Medicine study, a gold standard study that will say it's safe, but not for these users. So right now, we know that people with quiescent heart disease, and there are a number of medical conditions that people in this room with medical degrees, not myself, can explain to you why, will be affected by the stimulant properties in sympathomimetics. And they're cardiac arrest, your heart will stop. It will stop. And you will go into full arrest, and if you're lucky enough to be revived, anywhere from 4 to 7 minutes, you start suffering brain damage, just in the fashion that you know from anybody who loses oxygenation in the blood to the brain. Then there are strokes. There are people that have medical conditions that are undiagnosed and unknown that could take this and it could trigger a stroke, a life-threatening, horrible stroke. Previously healthy people, people with unknown blood pressure or borderline blood pressure at risk. And then you take people with mild defects in their heart. Their heart works strong, they're athletes, they're working out regularly, but you add this little gasoline, and you put the fire to it. That's what causes a myocardial infarction, is this extra stress that's put on the heart of a heart that is still working very well, though it has some minor problem that's going to be discovered down the road when a physician gets their hands and there's a symptom. But these pre-symptom people are going to suffer the consequences of these products. And those are our clients. That's Michael Sparling. People who have no way of knowing that these drugs are going to hurt them, the healthiest, youngest of people.
You know, we haven't had Greg, Greg Mauer is a Cornell student. He's the person who originally brought this to my attention over the summer. You want to talk about, I guess, your specific example and I guess how readily available or used is DMAA on college campuses?
Sure. Well, first off, I just had something to say about the disclosure to consumers because I actually founded a society at Cornell, the Cornell Health and Nutrition Society, that we, we're a bunch of guys who, we've experienced as young athletes and just young individuals trying to improve our own bodies. We experienced, the pressures of, wanting to do so and looking to these supplements for, quick results and to the sort of false advertising that they feature and we actually started the society to look deeper into these supplements, into these ingredients, and seeing if there's any potential side effects associated with them. And a lot of these ingredients, such as DMAA, they have like 30 alternative names, that are associated with them as well. And this is really important when it comes to disclosure to consumers because we represent consumers who we actually want to look into the ingredients. We want to actually see if there are any side effects associated with them. And we often run into a lot of different names and we can't even discern between them and see there will be certain supplements that will have a different alternative name for DMAA, and we won't even really know that that's DMAA. That's what it's talking about. So that's just an issue. So when I was younger, I was about 14. I was diagnosed with fatty liver, and I looked to the supplement DMAA and other supplements to improve my own physique and to better athletic performance. And then my father actually, he saw all these supplements in my house on our counter, and me, partly driven by my youthful naivete, I had no idea what I was putting in my body, and my father, he asked me probing questions like, all right, so what is this ingredient, what is that? And I had no idea. And then later on, you know, at school, like I said, I founded the Cornell Health and Nutrition Society. That's when I really started getting interested in, all right, what is this stuff? You know, what am I actually putting in my body? And why is none of this stuff regulated? You know, like, really no one, I felt like I had no credible authority that was overseeing this. Like there was nothing else protecting me. It was just this, industry that pretty much took matters into their own hands when it came to our, my health, my friend's health. Obviously, this family's son's health. And that's a really big issue, obviously. And it's this, these supplements, they're very, very accessible. Very. I mean, you can get them. We have, Ithaca actually has a GNC, a Vitamin Shoppe. In fact, I think 2 or 3 GNCs. In every GNC, you can get, or a couple, you can get this Jack3d or a supplement like it. There are plenty of supplements like that are called pre-workout supplements or nitric oxide boosters that are essentially, induce the same effects as Jack3d. They're supposed to stimulate you, get you really amped up for your workout, or jacked, as you'd say. Case in point, DMAA. If one of these supplements can, or Jack3d, if one of these supplements can contain an ingredient that is, could take a life, or then there could be others, and the FDA is not regulating these industries. That is a definite issue, and that's all I have to say.
Does anyone else want to comment on that before we close?
Yeah, just to touch on what Ann had brought up. The proprietary blend is probably the biggest issue on that label, because, you don't have any idea, and Jose, you brought this up earlier, you don't really have an idea of how much of what is what. You also touched on the whole ephedra thing, where I used to say on the sides of hydroxycut rip fuel, okay, for your first week, just take 1 before your workout and see how your body tolerates it. And then, the max dose, I think, was like 3 or 4 pills, per day or whatever it turned out to be. And then, Diane, to touch back on your point, I think that you can put whatever type of warning on there you want, but if a 14-year-old kid or a 15-year-old kid thinks that he's gonna get the results that he wants, it doesn't matter what it says on the side. People still smoke cigarettes. They know it causes cancer. And so I think the point here, is getting this stuff off the market. I don't think it's necessarily increasing, the labeling on the outside with the skull and crossbones or anything like that. I think the point here is to say, you know what? We're not going to wait for this to kill somebody else. We're going to say, okay, you know what? There's enough material evidence behind this. There's enough of the events. There's enough white papers. There's enough research to say, okay, enough is enough. All right, it's off the market. It's off the shelf.
But until the next thing comes along. So we've seen it. You've had ephedra and
Sure.
this, and there's always some new snake oil that people want to buy so that they can, get the change that apparently they were not genetically predisposed to.
I'm sorry, I just want to allow the Assemblywoman Ross to ask.
Can I add one more thing? How responsible are advertisers? I know for a fact that you sell a product to a Kmart or a Walmart. They create the budget for advertisement on these products. They can advertise it however they want. How responsible are advertisers? I mean, a lot of it, if you look at it, it's kind of, to me, it's kind of funny and ironic. I'm thinking, is the public that dumb to believe that you take this pill, it's going to make you run a 4.29 40? You take this pill, you're going to dunk a basketball. You take this pill, you're going to hit home run in the MA. I mean, to me, I think there has to be some type of responsibilities by the advertisers. There has to be. Some type of accountability, at least.
You're right.
Yeah, well, one thing that, and thank you all for your testimony, because I've certainly learned a lot, and I had done some research, just like, on this. And I feel good about this, number one, because I realize, again, how important state government is, that oftentimes we're the laboratories, if you will, for the federal government. And it seems to me there's a big disconnect in terms of responsibility, going forward. But that being said, there seems to be, Ms. Andrews, you seem to point out a causal relationship between these drugs and certainly rather horrible outcomes. what about when you see consumer products, all different types, even foods that are recalled? For example, spinach, if you will, that yet you're seeing some type of consumer product, a food product, and it's recalled. At what point does a federal government step in terms of the recall of a product, even a food product? You know, you remember spinach, where they had made that association that there were a couple of children that got sick and they pulled the product. Why isn't there any type of recall on this when you have seemed to prove a rather strong adverse outcomes of eating this food?
I think where foods are concerned and the consequences of the testing that's required of foods is state by state, and the disease consequence, and Dr. Cohen can probably address that better.
The FDA has the ability, actually very recently, to have a mandatory recall of dietary supplements. That was just enacted maybe in 2011 or so, but it's never used it. And the FDA has been honestly spineless when it comes to addressing these serious, their agency is a public health agency, but they haven't got the job done. So unfortunately that's where they are. But the FDA does have the ability, if there's serious medical risk, to work with them first to ask for voluntary manufacturer recall of the products. And that's what they were suggesting with their warning letters. The idea, of course, was then the manufacturers would just recall it. But remarkably, not only do we have manufacturers still producing it, we still have GNC selling it. That's tragic. But the FDA still hasn't moved to the next level.
But I think to follow up on that, what you're referring to about foods, the confusion is that when the health inspectors go in and test for foods, they're looking for E. coli, they're looking for old-fashioned contaminants that are affecting the food supply. And those recalls, if you have the alerts on your phones like I do, there's dozens of those every day. You know, peanut butter recalls for all kinds of, you know, salmonella has been really out of control, and the FDA is very concerned about their budget right now because the food supply of this country is going to be at risk, because they are able to quickly and swiftly act on a salmonella outbreak, an E. coli outbreak. They, with the CDC, can track that kind of data very quickly. This is much more insidious, and I think whoever spoke, Ed, about how, you know, half of this, and Dr. Eichner, we know the adverse event reports, and she used numbers that's published data from the New England Journal of Medicine, that herbal supplements, first of all, doctors, medical personnel taking the information in at the point of emergency, usually emergency room visit, of this being on the list of substances used, you know, what drugs were you taking, what dietary supplements, that's recent. That's very recent and still not totally compliant. There's not really good data on how many doctors are really filling out the dietary supplement portion of this. And then we know that half the time, a lot of the evidence, if a doctor Googles DMAA, they're not going to find a lot of published medical literature, so they have to go into the patent law, into all the research you've done here to find this chemical and to know that it has the sympathomimetic properties. And simply, you know, that's every not every doctor over the, how many prescriptions do you prescribe? I don't know, a month, 2,000 different drugs, something like that. I've read the data on your practice. To know this world, and the gentleman that pointed out, they do change the name. And the reason they can change the name is because there is no regulation. So one day it shows up as DMAA, the next product puts in it the fancy plant species botanical name that I can't even pronounce today, and there's 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 different versions of that plant species. So there's a great amount of trickery to keep people from finding out what's in these products, and to keep doctors, and it's in fairness to the medical profession, how could they possibly stay on top of this? It would take an incredible amount of insight. You take kind of an herbal PhD to be able to track the dangerous, the types of species of plants, the types of dangers associated with them. I always remind people that arsenic comes from a plant. It's synthesized and sold, you know, in your rat poison now, but many dangerous, highly dangerous chemicals were originally synthesized from plant material. And this is just another one of them. They're just saying that they don't have to get it from a plant now. They're just going to make it in a laboratory and say, we can find it in a plant in a remote part of China, maybe one tiny speck. And one leading medical expert in the field of botanicals made some sort of description to me that might really bring it home for you, that might, you might fill a room this size with bales of geranium. If you could find enough of that plant on some mountain in Tibet, that particular geranium strain, you might have to have as many bales as would fill this room to make one entire lot of 100,000 bottles of this stuff. So when you talk about the volume to extract it, that's where the lie is. The tiny, minuscule amount, the debate over this is absolutely ridiculous. They fell back and said, we don't even need for it to be planted. They put that up first. That smokescreen was first, and that debate did rage for several months. And then they finally said in one of their responsive letters, and even if we can't prove to you it came from a plant, we don't need to. So they're sitting, they've taken full advantage of the gray area of this law. We thank Senator for you bringing this issue. We're very glad to be here and to come to travel you. And I know the Sparling story and so many other stories of families and other victims that we represent are being well represented here today. And we really, really, really encourage you to pass this bill swiftly and to prevent this from happening. And we're very happy to answer any more questions or come in and make ourselves available.
I want to thank everyone. We're running out of time. Our session starts at 3 o'clock. But really, I want to thank each and every one of you. I think your testimony here today is going to go a long way towards, one, making sure we continue to have public awareness about the dangers of DMAA, and also I think the tools we need to effectively pass this legislation in New York